On the morning of November 5, 2018, the frost in Forsyth County, Georgia, didn't just chill the air, it preserved a crime scene that would baffle the nation. A mother of 5, a football mom known for her fierce loyalty, lay face down in the grass of a luxury backyard. The guests claimed she fell. The police called it an accident. But the body? The body told a different story. Before we unseal this archive, subscribe to Silent Archive for more forgotten history. Today, we open the file on Tamla Horsford. To understand the silence surrounding this case, we have to look back over a century, to a time when the very soil of Forsyth County was scrubbed clean of its black population. September 1912. The alleged rape and murder of a white woman named May Crow ignited a racial firestorm that would change Georgia forever. A 24-year-old black man named Rob Edwards was dragged from his jail cell by a mob of 2,000. He was beaten, shot, and hung in the town square. Following his death, night riders began a campaign of terror. Over 1,000 black residents were forced out under threat of death, leaving behind their homes and their history. For 75 years, Forsyth remained a sundown county, a place where the sun was never meant to set on a person of color. Even in 1987, a march for brotherhood was met with rocks and rage. This is the legacy Tamla Horsford stepped into on that November night. It was supposed to be a tame girls' night. Football, Cards Against Humanity, and a birthday celebration for Gene Myers. But as the Mountain Dew and tequila flowed, the atmosphere in that 3-story house began to shift. Tamla arrived late, wearing dog print pajamas. She brought a bottle of tequila from Mexico as a gift, a gesture met with sneers from guests who claimed the smell made them throw up. Despite the cold reception, Tamla stayed. She was a woman who rarely got me time away from her 5 sons. By 1:30 a.m., the official timeline begins to fracture. The house was equipped with high-tech door sensors that told a silent story of their own. At 1:47 a.m., the front door chirps, a guest leaving. At 1:49 a.m., the back door to the balcony opens. It closes a minute later. At 1:57 a.m., it opens again. This time, it never closes. It was 45 degrees outside. Tamla was in thin pajamas. Investigators suggest she stepped out to smoke and simply vanished over the railing. But the toxicology report added a dark chemical layer. Tamla had alcohol, THC, and Xanax in her system. She didn't have a prescription for Xanax, but one guest, Bridget Fuller, was known to carry the pills in a necklace, a Cruel Intentions-style accessory she claimed was for her own anxiety. Fuller told police her medication made it impossible for her to lie. No one at the party admitted to giving Xanax to Tamla, yet the pills were there, metabolizing in her system, silently marking the minutes until her heart would stop. Let's look at the silent witness, the body itself. When the 911 call was placed at 8:59 a.m., nearly an hour and a half after she was found, the physical evidence began to speak a language of its own. Jose Barrera told the dispatcher the body was stiff. He claimed he checked her vitals by lifting and bending her leg, but standard first aid dictates checking a pulse. Moving a limb to check for rigor is highly irregular for anyone but a forensic professional. It suggests a familiarity with the state of death that raises questions. If she fell 14 feet, physics dictates a certain trajectory. Yet, Tamla was found face down, toes perfectly pointed toward the house, arms at her side. A fall rarely results in such symmetrical precision. Then there are the grass imprints. Crime scene photos showed blades of grass on the top of Tamla's hands. This suggests her hands were palm up for a significant period before being moved to the palm down position found by police. Someone or something moved her after the life had left her body. The private autopsy found a broken wrist with almost no blood. In a living person, a snapped bone gushes. In a body where the heart has stopped, the blood is sluggish, heavy, and silent. The state ruled it an accident, but the private autopsy found no significant trauma to the skull or neck. Injuries almost always present in a 14 vertical face plant. Instead, it found an impacted nasal fracture and a broken wrist. This suggests the fall may have occurred after her heart had already ceased to beat. The body was a map of a night that didn't go as planned, and every mark pointed away from the official story and toward a truth that was being buried in the backyard. When the 911 call was finally placed at 8:59 a.m., nearly 90 minutes after the discovery of the body, the first cracks in the official narrative appeared. The caller was Jose Barrera. Why was the investigation so shallow? Perhaps it's because the house was a blue zone. Jose Barrera wasn't just a guest. He was a pre-trial officer for the Forsyth County court system. The lead investigator? He was Barrera's personal friend. Barrera was later fired for accessing confidential files on the case, but the damage to the investigation's integrity was already done. The scene was treated with a casual familiarity. Tamla was the only black woman at the party. Witnesses revealed that the hostess, Jean Myers, had jokingly referred to her as the female Bob Marley shortly before the incident, a comment that hinted at a deeper, underlying tension. While the body lay in the yard, guests inside were allegedly cleaning the house. The scene was never secured. By the time forensics arrived, the evidence of a struggle, if any, had been scrubbed away. And then there was the digital evidence. When asked for the security footage from the balcony, Myers claimed the batteries were dead. When the GBI reopened the case in 2020, the digital records had been purged, phones replaced, memories faded. The house on Woodlet Court stands as a monument to silence, a place where the truth was closed twice, but never truly found. Next, we unseal the final file, the legacy. In the summer of 2020, as the world marched for racial justice, the name Tamla Horsford was whispered across millions of screens. A petition demanding a new investigation garnered over 700,000 signatures. Celebrities like Kim Kardashian, 50 Cent, and T.I. used their platforms to amplify the case. They questioned the inconsistencies, the blue zone connections, and the silence of a county that seemed all too eager to move on. The movement forced the GBI to reopen the file. But the reckoning wasn't just about the present. In 2021, 109 years after the lynching of Rob Edwards, a historical marker was finally placed in downtown Cumming. It was a tangible admission of a truth that had been sugar-coated for a century. Reconciliation is a slow, painful process. The Forsyth Descendants Scholarship was launched to provide support to those whose ancestors lost everything in 1912. It's an acknowledgement of the generational wealth that was burned away in the fires of racial cleansing. Today, Tamla's family remains in the public eye. Her husband, Leander, and her father, Kurt, maintain that they will never surrender. For them, the archive isn't a historical curiosity. It's a living wound that only the truth can heal. Forsyth County today is a place of affluence and growth, yet it is still haunted by the ghosts of 1912. The case of Tamla Horsford reminds us that when a community chooses silence over transparency, the past never truly stays buried. The archive remains open, waiting for the final piece of the puzzle. Beyond the forensic anomalies lay a web of human stories. Investigators conducted 30 interviews with the guests who were there that night. Each testimony was a thread in a tapestry that refused to align. Let's look at the inner circle. Guests like Paula Seals and Nicole Lawson provided accounts that seemed to fracture under scrutiny. While some spoke of a jovial birthday celebration, the logs and the digital evidence suggest a far more complicated reality. At 12:32 a.m., Tamla placed a FaceTime call to her daughter. She seemed happy, the life of the party. But this call became a forensic anchor that dragged several witness statements into question. Nicole Lawson claimed she left the party at 10:30 p.m., yet digital records place her there during that 12:32 a.m. call. It's a 2-hour discrepancy that was never fully explained. Why would a guest lie about when they walked out of that house? The tone of the interviews was equally unsettling. Hostess Jean Myers' description of Tamla was criticized as dismissive, even snobby. She insisted Tamla's arms were at her sides, a detail that contradicted the police photos. In Forsyth County, the collective memory of that night seemed to have been curated. While the GBI reaffirmed the accidental ruling, the Horsford family asks a simple question. How can 30 people be in one house and no one see a mother of 5 fall 14 feet to her death? The circle was tight, and the silence was total. Next, we examine the final pieces of the puzzle: the GBI reinvestigation and the unanswered questions. Under the weight of national scrutiny and over 700,000 voices, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation reopened the file on Tamla Horsford in June 2020. It was supposed to be the final word. The reinvestigation was a fresh look at the forensic map of that night. Investigators dove back into the digital footprints and the witness statements, but the most unsettling discoveries were found within the body itself. The GBI reaffirmed a rare injury, a 3/4-inch laceration to the right ventricle of Tamla's heart. This type of trauma is typically associated with high-impact events, like a high-speed car accident. The family's private pathologist argued that a 14-foot fall rarely produces such an internal tear without significant external trauma to the skull or neck. Yet, the GBI maintained that the injury was possible given the specific physics of her descent. On July 27, 2021, the GBI announced its conclusion. District Attorney Penny Penn reviewed the findings and determined that the facts did not support the pursuit of criminal charges. The case was officially closed again. For the Horsford family and their attorney, Ralph Fernandez, the 2021 report ignored the defensive wounds and the logistical impossibility of her final position. They refused to accept the finality. To them, an accident is just a word for a truth that was never allowed to speak. The official archive is closed, but in the heart of Forsyth County, the silence remains. Next, we examine the final pieces of the puzzle, the unanswered questions. At 1:57 a.m., the digital silence of the house on Woodlet Court was broken. The smart home system recorded a final, definitive event. The back door to the balcony opened. It would never be recorded as closing. To investigators, this timestamp was the smoking gun. It pinned Tamla's final moments to a precise window. The sensors were magnetic reed switches, simple, reliable technology that documented her exit into the 45-degree night. 1:47 a.m., front door chime. 1:49 a.m., back door opens. 1:50 a.m., back door closes. 1:57 a.m., the door opens again. The log is a map of a movement that led to a fall. But where the logs were precise, the cameras were blind. The home was equipped with Arlo security cameras, yet not a single frame of footage was recorded. The reason? Dead batteries. Investigators found a low battery notification in the logs, but for the Horsford family, the timing was too convenient to ignore. Cell phone data and health records were subpoenaed. The GBI reviewed GPS coordinates and movement data, searching for signs of a struggle. They concluded that the digital evidence corroborated the witness statements. But the body told a different story. Digital evidence is only as good as the system that records it. In Forsyth County, the digital footprint provided a frame, but it left a massive blind spot where the most critical questions remained unanswered. How does a mother of 5 vanish into the night without a single camera seeing her? The logs are set in stone, but the truth is still in the shadows. Next, we unseal the file on the family's fight, the Ralph Fernandez findings. While the state called it an accident, one man called it a medical impossibility. Ralph Fernandez, the Horsford family attorney, began unearthing a series of explosive findings that challenged every pillar of the official story. Fernandez didn't just question the investigation, he dissected the forensic results. He argued that the injuries found on Tamla's body were inconsistent with a 14-foot fall and pointed toward a much darker reality. It started with the wrist. The official report cited a dislocation. Fernandez, supported by private experts, contended it was a compound fracture, bone protruding through the skin. In a living person, this would cause significant hemorrhaging. Yet, at the scene, there was almost no blood. The lack of blood led to a chilling conclusion. The injury may have been post-mortem, occurring after the heart had already stopped. Furthermore, despite a 14-foot fall, There was no indentation in the turf where she landed. No point of impact. Just a body, perfectly placed. Then there was the mystery of the missing photos. In a case of this magnitude, Fernandez discovered a remarkable lack of photographic evidence. Only 5 photos of the body were reportedly taken during the initial autopsy, a practice he described as defying logic. For Fernandez, the investigation was compromised from the start. From the unpreserved scene to the failure to collect fingernail clippings, he maintains that the system failed Tamla Horsford. He knows it was a homicide, but without a badge, the burden of proof remains an uphill battle. The advocate's file is thick with questions that the GBI report never answered. Next, we unseal the final chapter, the archive's summary. We have unsealed 10 files. We have analyzed the bones, the logs, and the lies. But as we reach the final summary of Silent Archive, 4 questions remain anchored in the frost of Forsyth County. Question 1. The door log discrepancy. Why did no one hear a 15-foot fall or a scream when the door opened? Question 2. The Xanax source. The drug was in her system, but its origin remains a legal ghost. Question 3. The 90-minute 911 delay. And finally, the missing video. A home guarded by cameras that were conveniently blind. In 2026, Tamla's family remains steadfast. Her husband, Leander, says it wasn't just an accident, it was a cover-up. Her father, Kurt St. Jour, views the case as a puzzle with missing pieces. A puzzle where Tamla was the one being investigated, not the perpetrators. The community of Forsyth remains polarized. To some, the GBI report is a definitive end. To others, it is a symbol of a dual justice system that has haunted this soil since 1912. Forsyth County continues to grow and modernize, but the ghosts of the past are patient. They wait in the silence of the backyard. When a community chooses silence over transparency, the past never truly stays buried. The archive remains open. It is a living record of a night that still doesn't make sense. A demand for a truth that was never allowed to speak. The Silent Archive, file NAR082 is complete, but the search for the truth, that is just beginning. Make good choices. I'll be seeing you in the next file.